Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Personal Finance Podcast. Thank you guys, everyone who's watched the first episode. I'm really trying to sort of get this podcast off the ground, so let me know if you have any suggestions in terms of topics, audio quality, length, anything like that. Just let me know. And in this episode, the second episode, what I wanted to talk about was side jobs. I myself have had a variety of side jobs, and they've really helped boost my income, actually surprisingly quite a lot. So I think they're really a good way to have a second stream of income, or third or fourth or what have you, which really hasn't been a popular topic until maybe the past 5 years or so. Diversifying your income and having it not come from one source. I might have an episode on that entirely, so I'm not going to delve too deep into it. But I really do want to talk about these side jobs. Now that we are in the age of the internet, there are so many side jobs and they are ridiculously easy to get, and it's super easy to also start your own business, run your own website, just sort of have your own brand even. There's so many side jobs that are solely on the internet alone that I can't even begin to get into it. I can't nearly list everything possibly. That would take way too long. But let me go through and talk about some of these side jobs that I personally have experience with, and then I'll talk about some of my friends and some other suggestions that I've seen online, and what I think works, what I think doesn't, and again, talking from my own experience and research here. So, the first side job I ever had, I think, was when I started college, and I had just gotten my first job that wasn't something minimum wage or retail. I started working at a hospital, and at this point in my life, I kind of had a revelation that I really wanted to take my finances seriously. I saw that college debt piling up, and it drove me crazy. I had to do something about it. And of course, taking classes is really hard. And working alongside of that in itself is also extremely hard. So it's not necessarily for everyone. I understand it's easy to get overwhelmed with having such a busy schedule and whatnot, but there are definitely positive aspects of working one job, if not multiple, when you're in college. And side jobs are actually really great because they allow you to, in some cases, set your own schedule, or at the very least, it's not your main thing. So the idea is that if you lost it, it wouldn't be necessarily the biggest blow to you financially. You could live without it. So my first side job was, I believe, walking dogs, and I primarily did this through Rover, and also my own advertising, so things like posters and Craigslist ads and whatnot. It was a very nice side job. I actually enjoyed the work a lot, obviously, because it's a pretty common thing to, want to basically play with dogs and get paid for it. It wasn't always fun, of course. There's times where you have to go out and it's raining or it's in the middle of winter. That's not necessarily fun. Sometimes you'll get lots of rambunctious dogs and it can be hard to handle. However, I will say that I did really like that side job, and I actually made quite a bit of money off of it. There weren't a whole lot of clients where I lived before, but I still was able to get bookings every week. I had a couple of regulars, and then I did one or two sort of, they were going on vacation type thing, and I stayed and watched the dogs for a few days, like a weekend or something. It paid really good hourly. I think I made like $40 hourly or something. But again, you only get a few hours a week, so there's kind of that trade-off. I got really close with some of my clients, so again, having regulars was very nice. And since I was only able to do things on weekends and evenings. That kind of affected my business as well. A lot of people want you to walk the dogs when they're at work, which is usually Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, but that's when I took my classes and had my other job. So it was really hard to find someone who needed someone to actually watch their dog at night. So again, a lot of weekend trips are what I had, and a lot of my other regulars were like nurses and things like that, where they kind of have odd hours anyway. Um, so that was a really nice side job that I would actually really recommend, especially if you like animals. Depending on what area you're in, it can be really hard actually, but through apps like Rover and Wag, it becomes a little bit easier to at least find a client base. The next side job I want to say that I got was probably working with my university. I worked for my professor as a research technician. That was 10 hours a week. I got to set my own schedule. I didn't get paid nearly as much as the dog walking, obviously, but it was really nice to be able to come in whenever I wanted. I would do my work and then I would leave, and I didn't even necessarily have to work 10 hours. My professor often said, as long as you get your work done, it doesn't matter how long you're here. So I usually only worked between 6 and 8 hours, really, which was really nice. And he completely understood. He didn't. He had the funding for that kind of role, so it wasn't really something that he was unhappy with or anything. He just didn't have a whole lot of work and didn't see the point in paying me, for 5 hours a week. So that was also a really nice side job, but I think that's something that's really unique and hard to get. So I'm not sure that that's something that everyone could do. Another side job I had for a while was actually doing a lot of tutoring online. That I would highly recommend if you have a degree or something. Go on Chegg and tutor, or just really do your own also. I made a lot more money doing in-person tutoring because I got to set my own rates. But this is something, again, where you can set your own schedule, and it's really nice, actually, to just have that sort of freedom. And you can always decline students. You can always pick who you're going to work with and what subjects you want to do, so I thought that was really nice. Since I was in science, I had lots of clients because I feel like people typically struggle with things like math and biology and chemistry. So I did a lot of organic chemistry tutoring. It's kind of notorious for being a hard course, so it wasn't hard to find students at all. I also did some calculus and, of course, lots of biology. That's what my background's in. The school was very well known for having a good biology program too, so that obviously helped. There were lots of biology students. So yeah, tutoring made me quite a bit of money, not only at school in person, but also online through Chegg. I'm sure there's plenty of other companies. Chegg is just the one that I have experience with. Let's see, what else have I done? I've also done some online, like reviewing websites and stuff. Those weren't as good. There is one in particular, that's not necessarily all reviews. It's more of a task website where people will post tasks and then you go ahead and do them. It's a lot of surveys and things like that. When I was at my prime, I was making about $4,000 a year on that, and I was hardly working at all. Last year, I've probably did 1 hour a week maximum, and I still made, I think, between $1,000 and $2,000 on that, so that's not bad at all. Unfortunately, this year, so far, I've not been doing as well, but I also haven't been using it as much. But I've noticed when I do use it, it doesn't work as well, so I don't know. I think that task websites are kind of hit or miss, and now there's a big influx of people who are joining, so it makes it really hard to actually get tasks. Same with those survey websites and similar things. They're kind of not as viable as they might have used to be. A lot of people have signed up for the big ones, and it makes it hard to actually earn money off of them. So I wouldn't really necessarily even recommend doing those nowadays. Um, I think that's most of what I've done. I've tried small things here and there. Obviously I'm trying this now. This is partially for my enjoyment, and then hopefully, of course, if I can monetize it, that would be nice as well. I think that having a brand or like having a podcast or YouTube is something that's extremely easy to do. And a lot of people are worried about failing and they want to plan it out and then they never actually do it. But I say just go for it because YouTube allows you that chance to evolve and expand and grow your user base and communicate with them and see what they actually want from you. And then obviously you can improve and change your style, and you can always get better doing that kind of thing. So I was one of those people who was like, oh, I'm going to wait, and I'm going to plan this out, and I'll make one thing, and it'll be amazing. And I started my first YouTube channel, which is not this one, and it turned out better than I expected. So I'm going to try this out because this is a topic that I'm more interested than my other one. My other one, I'm not going to even bother promoting myself, but I definitely really like personal finance, and I think that it's something that, while I do have some experience with it, I'm still also learning about. So I'm hoping that I can kind of learn with you guys, if that makes sense, and show you what I've learned, and things like that. So again, this is part of it. I also ran a Skillshare account for a bit. That didn't go very well. There's a lot that goes into it, but basically, I was making decent money for a while, and then Skillshare started taking down a couple of my highest rated classes, and I kind of got fed up with that. I didn't want to post on there anymore because they were starting to take down classes of mine that I felt it was kind of unfair to take them down. They wouldn't really give me specific answers as to why they would take things down. And sometimes they would say it was things like audio quality or video quality when I had other classes up that were shot the same way and recorded like the exact same way, so it didn't really make sense to me. But anyways, I don't do Skillshare anymore. I was making up to like $150-$200 a month at my peak, but it's just not worth it to me anymore to deal with that kind of stuff. Their customer service wouldn't answer my questions, and eventually they just stopped answering my emails altogether. At one point, they rerouted my emails to another Skillshare user, which I thought was really odd. I don't know if that was an error, like, in their system, but I replied directly to the help email that had, reached out to me in the first place regarding my account. So I don't know what happened there, but I thought it was a really weird situation. So I don't do that anymore. I did have technically another side job. I would do things like fix computers for friends, and I obviously would make it really cheap, but an occasional $50 for getting rid of some viruses or something like that was really nice. I used to grow plants a lot. I still do grow plants a lot. It's one of my passions. I really like gardening. But I used to sell them, and I don't grow enough to sell anymore. I don't really have any excess. But that was something I did. That really didn't make me much money at all, but it was fun and I enjoyed it. So I really didn't mind making, an extra $50 a year is not a lot by any means, but it was nice to just have a little extra cash that month or what have you, because of course, since it's gardening stuff, it's really only popular for a couple months and then it kind of dies off. Let's see, what else have I done? I have also done music related things a bit. I've done a commission or two as well as had some like donations and stuff, but I wouldn't really consider those side jobs. They didn't last long at all. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's as far as I can think. I recently applied to be a census taker, so I'm kind of hoping I get that. That sounds like something that would be easy for me to do, and still be worth the amount of time that I would put into it. When I was in school, I thought it was a lot easier to do these side jobs, especially the online ones, because I was online a lot more. Now that I work 9 to 5 and some of my work is online, I don't really feel like going online when I get home, if that makes any sense. I like to do things like exercise and go outside. So I'm gonna try and find a way to do that. I did try and sign up for Amazon Flex, but unfortunately they are not hiring in my area. I am somewhat interested in doing delivery things like that. I typically don't like using my car just because I feel like my car is getting old now, so the wear and tear on it is kind of hard to justify for me. I know you probably make enough to offset the maintenance or whatever, but I wish I could have done Amazon Flex. I've been thinking about doing the grocery delivery stuff, but I'm not sure if it's popular enough in my area. I have to look into it. I know that I definitely don't want to do Uber or Lyft. While I really appreciate being able to use services like that, I don't think I'd feel safe as a driver. Especially my town's a touristy town and people get drunk and I don't want to deal with that kind of thing. Maybe if you were better at defending yourself, I think that would be, if you were confident that you would be safe, then that's definitely something that is actually a really good side job. Again, if you don't mind doing that extra maintenance on your car or whatever, then I've heard of a lot of people making really good money off of things like that. Same with just like food delivery and whatnot, because you get the tips. So again, I'm a little bit concerned about safety, not so much with food delivery like Uber Eats or something, but more so with actually driving people places. But yeah, I think if you feel safe doing it, I know my friends have made quite a bit of money off of Uber and Lyft, so that's something you could consider. I'm really also looking now towards like seasonal or part-time work that I can do in the evenings and maybe on the weekends. I really need something where I can set my own schedule is the issue. There's not a whole lot of jobs like that out there. I've done blogging before. I've made a bit of money off of that. But all in all, there's not a whole lot of jobs that can reliably, you can set your own schedule. I think the best way to kind of do that is to actually run your own business. So that's why I started doing things like Skillshare and tutoring and dog walking, because I do get to set my own schedule. But now that those things aren't really viable, especially in my area with like the dog walking, and obviously I don't do Skillshare anymore, tutoring has its really slow months, so I don't like it. I also don't like tutoring online as much as I do in person, and Chegg has become sort of competitive almost in terms of actually getting students. So I don't necessarily like teaching on Chegg, for hours a night or anything. I'd like something that just has consistent work, if at all possible. I'm not quite sure. I've looked at like transcription and like data entry jobs. They actually have a lot stricter requirements than I expected. I used to do data entry at a hospital, but it was not very rigid. You could go pretty slow in terms of actual typing speed and things like that. So when I see those requirements, they kind of make me nervous, almost. I'm a decent typer. I'd say I'm average, but I'm definitely not at data entry, professional data entry speed by any means. So I can't do that. I've been looking into call center stuff, but there's actually not a lot around my area. I've looked at the remote ones too, and there's like some that seem okay, and then I'll look into it and the company has really bad reviews, so then I decide no, I'm not going to do that. I know other options like retail and fast food would get me a really flexible schedule, but I'm not sure that I want to do that. I personally don't think it's worth it. Um, I just wouldn't make enough money doing that. I'd rather, and I don't really enjoy it. I'd rather do something that I like and not get paid as much, instead of actually, doing that kind of work and then still not getting paid that much. It's just not worth it at all to me. But other side jobs, like if I could design t-shirts or something like that, I've heard people have made tons of money off of that. Like also a lot of people resell things on like Etsy or eBay, and I've heard that can make quite a bit of money. Um, I've thought about trying to get into painting, but I don't enjoy it as much as I do music or anything, so I don't see a point. I don't want to try and sell my paintings and go through all that just because I don't think it's worth doing it just for the sake of selling it. I think that's something that you really have to be passionate about, to really enjoy, and I don't necessarily enjoy it that much. Other than that, I mean, I don't really have any other side jobs per se, but I do have a couple like survey apps and things I use that I actually make okay money off of. There's one that I max out that's like $500 a year or so, I think it is. Um, I do that survey app every year and I get the full $500. It pays an Amazon gift card, so it's not really real money, but Amazon has just about everything on it, so it's almost as good as real money to me anyway. Um, but yeah, I think this year, especially more towards the summer, I'm just gonna try and pick up like odd jobs and tasks that people post, like helping people move and maybe doing some landscaping type thing. Um, I also really want to work events, like the census, for example. I think those are really good because if I can just, I don't want to work necessarily every weekend, but if I can just work every once in a while and just work the entire weekend, I think like that would really be a good schedule for me. Um, I don't necessarily want a strict routine that I have to keep up with or anything because I like to enjoy my free time and do spontaneous things. So if there is another event or something, I might want to leave, or if I want to do this instead, or I want to write my music instead, or do any of my other hobbies, I can do that. I don't want to like stick to a very strict, stringent schedule. So I think again, things like events are really gonna be nice for me. Um, I know there's a popular kind of music festival type thing down here, um, in the springtime, so I think I'm gonna see if I can apply for that, um, and just work on the weekends. The best part about having these side jobs, though, is that I don't necessarily need to have them. They're just some extra money for me to actually enjoy and spend on whatever I want to, or save if I want to save it. I used to have it set up so that all my money from from one certain side job went to my investment account. Um, but then I found that I was investing too much and probably not saving enough. So now I just put it in my main account and I can kind of divvy it up from there. Um, but it's amazing how much my side job income has ranged. There've been side jobs. There have been months where I've made thousands of dollars off my side jobs, and then like this month, for example, I've made pretty much nothing. Um, so it just kind of depends, I guess, on what you do and the season and things like that, and how much time and effort you're willing to put into it. Um, so yeah, I mean, surveys and things like that are really easy, so that's why I think a lot of people are doing those, and the work has become kind of hard to come by. Um, Another thing you could try are focus groups, or even clinical trials as a healthy control subject. I've done focus groups in the past, and I know that those have They pay pretty well for what they are, although they're not the most exciting thing, I suppose, if that makes any sense. Um, oh, and then for clinical trials, I haven't been part of any medical trials, but I have done psychological studies, and again, not the most interesting or fun thing, but they do actually pay pretty well for what they are. I know now it's hard to get into those psychological studies because most of the time they are done by universities, and the universities make the students do it, so not necessarily the easiest thing to get into, but it is definitely possible, I suppose. But yeah, again, I think that it's a really good strategy just to do things online. And if you can build a brand, like for example, if you can have an e-commerce store plus a YouTube plus a blog, that will build up really quickly, like extremely quickly. So I think that those are really good strategies, is to like link everything together in terms of online side jobs. So you could have a YouTube channel, have a blog that talks about your YouTube channel, have an e-commerce store with merch or related products or whatever, anything related to your topic really. And then you could also have, let's say for example, something like online courses that people will pay for, or you can make a podcast that's similar to your YouTube channel or something like that. So it really just depends. I mean, again, you can link things together. Like an ebook, for example, is another good example of how you can do things online. So it all just kind of depends on what you think that you can do and what you think that you're going to be good at, and really what you enjoy, because I don't think a side job is really worth doing unless you're at least having a little bit of fun. But again, that's just my own personal preference. But side jobs, I think, again, are great just because you can do whatever you want. You don't have to have a side job. That's why it's a side job. So again, it should be something you enjoy. Another thing, I guess you could do, I haven't talked much about writing or graphic design. So graphic design, you could go fulfillment by Amazon route. You could do like a cafe press type thing. Or you could do things like on Fiverr, designing logos, have your own personal website and your own personal brand. Those are really good for writing. You can do things like ebooks, or you can do shadow writing, editing, things like that. Another thing that people have done as side jobs are manage an Airbnb. I personally don't have room to do that, and I don't think that it's really a good idea in terms of security and safety again. But I don't think that it wouldn't work for anyone. So if that's something, if you have an extra spot in your basement or something that's actually livable, or you have a guest room that you don't use most of the year, that would definitely be a good way to kind of monetize that. But again, it just depends on what your own personal situation is. Other things you can do as side jobs, let's think. You could be a social media manager for small businesses. Those might be a little less flexible because they'll probably want you to be posting somewhat regularly. Although I suppose some social media platforms have ways to schedule posts, so that might not be as bad. But yeah, I don't know. I've personally looked at those jobs and I haven't quite found anything. They seem to want you to have some kind of experience in that, which I totally understand. But I don't want to make a career out of a side job, if that makes any sense. So I personally wouldn't go put in the effort to go through all of that. But yeah. I guess another thing you could do is, if you really like cooking, you could do catering or sell your extra stuff. Like you could do like bake sales and things like that. I'm not sure how profitable that would be, but I think again that's something that you'd be able to enjoy. And really making food typically is pretty cheap unless you're getting like really quality ingredients, like really nice premium ingredients, and then the profit margin on food is actually pretty high from what I understand. So I feel like that might actually be a decent route or something to do if you do like cooking, and obviously you have to be somewhat good at it. Let's see what else. Oh, cleaning. This is one that I wanted to do myself that I was considering for a while. There was a place near the hospital that wanted to, it was a bank that was looking to hire people to clean. And obviously this happens at night when the bank is closed, so that's really nice that it's at night for my schedule at the time. However, that was when I used to usually walk dogs, and I didn't want to change that. I really liked my current clients, and I really enjoyed walking dogs, obviously more than cleaning, and the pay was about similar. I think the cleaning was actually slightly, it was less hourly, but there were more hours, so overall it was more. But I think that would be a decent side job for anyone because most of the cleaning is going to happen on evenings and possibly on weekends as well. So like after work you could just go and clean, and usually no one's there, so you can play your music and whatnot. So that kind of makes it fun, I suppose. So that's one. That's another idea you could do is cleaning. I'm sure there's like housekeeping type stuff you could do probably on the weekends as well, like clean other people's houses. That might work. Washing cars is another kind of classic summer side job that you would do as a kid, I suppose. I mean, it's probably a lot harder to get away with as an adult, but it's definitely not impossible. Another thing is if you know another language, you could become a translator or a tutor, obviously. I wanted to do that for a while. It's really hard to feel like you're at a level of fluency where you can do that, and unless it's your first language or like something that you've been learning for a long time, I understand it can be really hard. So that's something you could consider. I'm not sure how much that would pay in terms of hourly pay or anything like that, but I've heard people making quite a bit of money as translators as a side job, and of course that's something where you can start your own business and set your own schedule and your own rates and everything like that, so you would have lots of control in terms of that. If you're good at music, you can also give music lessons. I personally never felt that I was at the level where I wanted to give lessons, unless it was like to people just learning, just starting out, I should say. It can also be a little bit harder because a lot of retail stores give music lessons, and that's obviously a good environment because if anything happens, they have like repair equipment right there. They have lots of amps and cables and stuff if anything breaks. They have obviously lots of access to sheet music and lots of access to people who obviously have music as a passion and deal with those kinds of things professionally. So it might be a little bit harder to come through, but you can advertise on like social media. Like if you know someone's kid or something is trying to start learning guitar and you know guitar, then obviously that's a good segue. But unless it's through like a friend or family or something like that, that can be something that's a little bit harder to market yourself. Let's see what else another thing that I actually did do for a while is review resumes. I did this through my own personal website, as well as on Chegg actually has a resume writing topic, or what's it called, subject. I didn't have a lot of volume coming in terms of that. And And really, I specialize only in my industry, so I felt like I rejected a lot of people just because if I don't know the industry, I'm not really confident that I'll be giving that person a fair product, so I just tell them no. But yeah, I think that that's one thing you can do, definitely. If you feel like you're confident in that, you could definitely go ahead and write resumes or help people edit their resumes or whatnot. Another thing you could do is you could become like one of those virtual assistants, but again, similar to the social media manager, that's something that usually companies look for previous experience in, so I don't think that's necessarily something that would be something that would be a good side job per se. Could do house sitting and things like that as well. But really, in terms of side jobs, let's see. I mean, really, you should just see what your passion is, I think, and go along with that. If you can, if that's possible. Like, things like photography are really good. If you're good at, like, carpentry or something like that, and that's not your main job, or, like, woodworking or something like that, you could do that as a side job, especially woodworking, and sell your creations and things like that. If you're an artist, again, that's something you could sell, or a writer, musician, stuff like that is, I think, pretty self-explanatory, and something that if you're like financially minded and financially forward, you're probably looking at a way to make a little extra money off your hobbies anyway. So if you're interested in those things, you've probably already figured out that you can make money off of it. Freelancing in general is a pretty good way to just kind of make that extra money. Another thing, I guess, is just labor stuff. So, like, again, we've talked about delivery already. Just general labor, so things like construction or cleaning or, just stuff like that. Oh, lawn care and landscaping. Things like that. Warehouse jobs, especially seasonally, are going to be something that you could do around Christmas, like a couple months before Christmas. You could really start to get a job with that kind of premise. There's also babysitting. If you know things like CPR or have any kind of teaching degree or something, that will always give you a little bit more credentials, but I think that's also another one that's pretty easy to do, but typically most of the hours are going to be 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. So if you already have like a regular corporate job, that's going to be pretty hard to actually find a way to make that happen. Let me think of what else is there for side jobs. Of course, anything you make, you can sell, but I think we've talked mostly about that. So I mentioned art and woodworking and music. Obviously, if you do something outside of that, like knitting or sewing, you can sell those types of things too. But yeah, I'm not quite sure what would be the best for you. Obviously, you're the only person who knows that. But I think side jobs are, again, a really great way to make a little bit of extra money, and you don't necessarily need to have them. The money from your side jobs can go directly into your savings or your retirement or other investment accounts, or they can be the extra money that you spend on the weekends. So again, just there's nothing wrong with wanting to be more productive and make more money. And on top of that, side jobs, if it's something that's relevant, is something that you can add to your resume, even if it's as like an extracurricular thing. it still can be helpful in terms of showing that you're trying to engage in some other way, or that you're more like a well-rounded person, you have other interests and things like that. So yeah, again, in summary, there's really nothing you can do wrong with a side job. If you find that it's not worth it, again, it's a side job, so you can always quit. The kind of seasonal temporary route is really what I'm trying to explore right now. I've done lots of regular things in the past, and it just won't work with my schedule anymore now that I'm not a student and I work full time. So, again, I've been trying to move away from the online stuff. YouTube isn't as bad for me. I can just sit here and talk in front of my microphone and hopefully entertain you guys. But I really didn't like my Skillshare putting together all my courses and doing all that editing and stuff. It just stopped appealing to me, and especially the survey and task websites after being online, a majority of the time at work, it just became too much screen time. So, yeah, I don't think I'll be going back to doing a whole lot of those task websites or anything. Unfortunately, I wish I could still walk dogs around here, but again, the client base just isn't there for it. So yeah, I'm hoping on that I'll get that census taker job and hopefully do some events as it becomes spring and summer and whatnot. I think those are really my best bet at enjoying myself while still making a reasonable amount of money for my time. If you guys have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments, because I know that at least I am always looking for extra side jobs, or even just little things I can do to get gift cards or things like that. Every little bit helps, really, so even if I only make $100 from one side job, I'll put that in my investment account or my savings account, and it'll grow eventually. Or it will at the very least offset some weekend where I spend more than I should have. So I think that not a lot of people necessarily think about having a side job to begin with. They have their main job and they see that they're making enough money to support themselves and maybe save a little on the side, and they're happy with that. But I assume if you're already listening to this podcast that you're looking for ways to become more financially free, and maybe you just enjoy saving or investing or even spending, because, I mean, who doesn't want more money? Let's be real. I think that it's something that obviously everyone aims for pretty universally. So, again, it may seem kind of odd or different to have a side job. Your friends might think it's weird, but who cares? If you're going to make that extra money, then it shouldn't matter to you what someone else's opinion is. And if you don't like it, then again, you can always quit because it's a side job. That's kind of the point of it. So I think I'm going to go ahead and end this here. I just wanted to talk to you guys about this topic because I think it's something that maybe isn't discussed a whole lot. Some people almost seem ashamed of having side jobs because, again, it's not necessarily a super regular thing or anything like that, but I think that's kind of dumb. But anyways, yeah, so thank you guys for listening, and like I said, if you have any comments, please feel free to leave them down below, and any suggestions for side jobs, or if you have something that I didn't cover and you want to hear talked about, please let me know again, and I will definitely read through those. So thank you, and have a good day.